Let us treat you to a vintage episode of my previous podcast, We Knew the Moon, featuring Randa as a co-host.
Top up your spooky meter until we come back soon with a new season.
Welcome to the Switchblade Sisters Social Club, a true crime podcast where two sisters exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome. I'm Dee.
And I'm Randa, and together we are the Sake Sisters. For more information, check out our website at www.switchbladesistersocialclub.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at Switchblade Sisters Social Club.
Thanks for listening. Hi, this is Dee, and this is We Knew the Moon, where we like to talk about all things empath, spiritual, witchy, unexplained, spooky, creepy, fascinating, anything that we like, really. And I am joined today by my sister, Randa Safier.
Hi!
Randa Safier Angeles. So Randa is a copy editor and a social media consultant, and she's fabulous. All of her links will be in the show notes. So We Knew the Moon is the official podcast of the Goddess Temple Twickenham. So check that out. We do events and all kinds of stuff. So if you're local, pop along to one of them. It'd be amazing to see you. And can I just say that in season 4, we're doing something a bit different in that you can go on Patreon. If you sign up for any amount, you want to give us £1 a month, that'd be great. And if you sign up for any amount, then you get free well, it's not free because you have to sign up, but you get unedited, full-length videos of our episodes in season 4. So you get to see our faces.
And our outfits and our bloopers.
And my lovely lipstick. Do you like it?
Very nice. Do you know what? Do you know what I was going to say to you? But sometimes you take things the wrong way. You look like a very pretty Robert Smith today.
I'll take that. That's a compliment to me.
Yeah. That's exactly what I meant to tell you. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And for those who don't know who I'm talking about, it's the lead singer of The Cure.
Yeah. Go check
we love him.
We love him. We love The Cure. Oh. Yeah. Anyways, Robert Smith, one of our loves, right?
Yeah.
I also just want to point out, because I'm really excited, we do record these a bit in advance, but something I'm going to be launching, and it's probably already launched, Tarot Journal. So what was that?
What was what?
Anyways, Tarot Journal. So We Knew the Moon Tarot Journal, because if you like tarot like I do, it's a place where you can actually log all of your readings. So you've got space, this is one I've actually started using, space to draw out what cards you've pulled, and place to write your interpretations. It's not the best showing you on this, but so you just have loads of space to basically log your readings. Because if you're like me, I used to take pictures and then I never looked back on them, and I just wanted one place to put them all. So I thought, why not make one?
Genius. It's actually genius, because I have photographs of my last tarot reading somewhere on my computer. I keep meaning to go back and reread the notes, and I just haven't. So it's actually genius.
It's space to log what, if you asked a specific question, even what phase of the moon it is, what deck you used, all that kind of stuff. So you've got all the information to hand. And also, so it's I think the 4th year that the lunar planner has come out. So it's basically a proper diary planner, like a page per day, which if you're like me is super important and really difficult to find, especially if you want anything with any kind of lunar spiritual stuff in there, because I like to take notes. So here, I opened up not on a page, you can see full page where you can put your appointment, your to-do list, extra stuff like what you're grateful for, what mood you're in, and so forth. But it also tells you exactly what phase of the moon each day, what phase the moon is in each day, and also tells you all of the new moons and all the full moons and different activities that are good for that phase of the moon in that sign. And it's got a bunch of stuff at the beginning, like analyzing your birth chart, which you can do your year tarot spread. I always like to do a year tarot spread, and again I was saving it in my photo album and never looking back at it and not remembering it, but now there's a place to save it. Different crystals and aromas for different moods, so if you want to be more productive or more relaxed, etc., etc. So loads of information. So check out the website to see where you can get hold of one. What is that beeping?
I don't know, I think it's my headphones. I don't know. Can you hear it? Because I don't hear what you're hearing, but mine were beeping before.
I heard beep, beep, beep. Anyways,
I didn't hear that.
so it's doing it a lot. Are you sure it's not like email or WhatsApp or something?
No, I've got nothing open.
All right. So yeah, Lunar Planner 2023. Feels crazy already talking about 2023, but it's happening soon. So check out the website to see where you can get hold of your copies of those.
It's the best planner. It literally, it's the best. You know, I love an old school pen and paper planner.
Yeah. And I only do limited runs of both, so do get yours early if you want to have one. All right, so I'm really excited. I love announcing the topics that I do because I have to know what topic the guests are doing because I do a lot of recording in advance. I need to make sure it's not been covered before in any kind of way. But my guests never know what topic I'm going to do.
This is my favorite bit, the reveal. The reveal.
So, sorry, I need to check what that beeping sound is because it's
I don't hear
constant. Okay, let's carry on. So today I'm going to tell you about psychic detectives.
Oh my God. Okay, I love that because I love that show that you told me about. Remember?
No.
The Mentalist.
Oh, The Mentalist. The Mentalist is such a good show. And
there was another one. The other one you told me about on Amazon.
Psych.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Psych? Yeah. Yep. That one was hilarious as well. But that one, they weren't genuine detectives. They weren't genuine psychics. They were just super observant.
So do you know what else? Just yesterday, I was reading about, and the Center of Excellence does this course. And for anyone that knows the Center of Excellence, like...
Love it. Yeah.
I love it. You know, are they in-depth?
We've promoted it every single time on the show. If you want to do a little bit of... some of them are more superficial and top line, let's say, and others actually go into quite a lot of detail. I've done a few courses. I love it.
Yeah, I have. And they're CPD certified, all the rest. I'll tell you what they have is like I was reading about this yesterday, a medical psychic course.
Okay, what is that beeping? I can't carry on.
Is it beep boop beep boop?
No, it's boop boop boop.
That's not. I don't hear that. It's something to do with you. Is it your headphones dying?
Yeah, it is my headphones dying.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna plug in my headphones because I can. Oh no, I can't. All right. Well, I'll do a bit with my headphones off and then.
Okay.
Blooper.
So there is a thing. There is.
Wait, I have to turn them off first. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh no, wait, hang on. Hang on. Okay, say something.
Hi.
Cool. So,
yeah, medical
psychic.
Yeah, medical. There's a term for it. Should we Google it real quick? Anyway, so basically the police used medical psychics or whatever. Well, I don't know, scrap all this shit 'cause I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay.
I wanted to focus on cases where psychics were used to help actually solve cases. Yes. And there's just no way that there's no explanation apart from the fact that they're genuinely psychics. Okay. We know there's a lot of frauds in this field in general, and there's a lot of every time there's a case a big high profile case, loads of psychics and psychics in quotation marks that come out of the woodwork with all kinds of suggestions. These are ones where it's like the psychic literally could not have had anything to do with the crime, because sometimes there's that, if you know that, then you must be the murderer. They couldn't have known anything about it. They couldn't have been involved in the actual crime itself. So they must be psychic, right? And so, I just love this topic because it combines two of my true loves, true crime and the spiritual unexplained.
I can't wait because you're good at telling stories. Okay, go.
Right. So now we've touched on psychics and mediums in several episodes. We talk regularly about our favorite psychic, Glenn, including spiritual fakes. So I'm not going to be talking about the different types of psychics or whether they are genuine or not. And I feel like I have recommended Psych and The Mentalist loads of times already. We've already talked about it. And they are people that are just super observant and therefore can pretend to be psychic, which in itself is a super amazing skill, to be that observant of those micro details and so forth. But anyway, and if you want to Google a psychic called Sylvia Brown, psychic in quotation marks, if you want an example of someone who caused more damage than helping. But I wanted to specifically look at these cases that were solved with the help of psychics.
Yeah.
So psychic detective is a name that probably pisses off actual detectives because they are not detectives. I don't think that's an official title outside of the mentalist. I'm referring to psychics that basically get involved in police cases. They are they're brought in on many different kinds of cases, but obviously the most dramatic are missing persons and murders. So of course, I'm going to focus on those. I used the Reader's Digest article on 20 crimes actually solved by psychics as a jumping off point. And I'm going to start with the disappearance of Andrew Daigle. There was also a really good episode of Paranormal Exposed podcast where they do a deep dive into this case if you want to hear more after I tell you this very abridged version. So Andre was... Sorry, I think I called him Andrew. His name is Andre Daigle. He is 27 years old, and him and his friend, Joe Lapinto, both lived in New Orleans. He was a carpenter, and he renovated houses with Joe. On June the 9th, 1987, remember the date, 87, because it plays a role this time period. He finished work, had dinner with a friend called Nick Shelley, and they went for drinks and to play pool after. And at around 10 p.m., he flirted with a woman named Thelma at the bar. And at around 11 p.m., Nick went home and Andre and Thelma left in Andre's truck. Andre didn't show up to work the next day, which was completely out of character for him. And when no one heard anything by the following evening, his family and friends started to get worried because, again, it's super out of character. Like, if I didn't hear from you for a day and you didn't reply to any of my texts or anything, I would be freaking out within hours, right? They contacted police. His family and friends contacted police, who weren't overly worried because, you know, this is an adult. He's been missing less than 24 hours. We all know that that's always a thing we hear in true crime cases, right? When people go missing. But eventually, when they realized it was more than just like an extended hookup, they opened up an official investigation. The investigation stalled as no one knew who Thelma was. Remember the lady that he left with at the bar?
Was it Thelma?
And there was no evidence of foul play. And remember, it's 87, so it's not like we had mobile phones and stuff like that. Frustrated by the lack of progress by the police, the family started their own investigation. And his sister, Elise, who lived in California, remember Andre lived in New Orleans, his sister Elise in California decided to reach out to a psychic, Rosemarie Kerr. This was 4 days after Andre went missing. His sister Elise was not necessarily a believer, but she just wanted to try anything and everything, which I totally get. I would be fucking trying everything. If you went missing, I would just be like, yes, I'd call all the psychics, you know?
We call Glenn.
Yeah, I'd call Glenn first. Elise brought a picture of Andre to the meeting with Rosemarie Kerr, who remembers also in California, and a map of Louisiana. Touching the picture, Rosemarie claimed her head was hurting, like she was being hit by a blunt object, and a voice was saying, "My head is killing me."
You know what? I'm getting scared.
She pictured a black truck and described its very specific damage down one side. Elise, the sister, wasn't even aware that Andre had recently swapped his white car for a black truck. So it's like she wasn't picking it up off the sister. It's 4 days in. I don't think there was like media around this case or anything. Rosemarie could see a blonde in the truck with him, and she pointed out an area on a map, a town called Slidell. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm going to call it Slidell, 30 miles from New Orleans. She mentioned a few things she could also picture: a swamp, a number 7, a sandy beach, and a long, low bridge. She told Elise they needed to move fast. Desperate to take some action, the family took the advice and headed towards Slidell in 4 different vehicles. I'm unclear actually where they were coming from. I don't know whether they were based in New Orleans or California or somewhere else entirely. But anyways, the next day, the 14th of June, remember he went missing on the 9th of June. In the middle of the night, the family have almost reached Slidell when what do they see? They see Andre's black truck driving on the road. But Andre wasn't in the truck. It was occupied by 2 men that the family did not recognize. Some of the party went to find a phone to call the police and their mother. And Chris, Andre's brother, followed the truck. So again, remember, 87, no mobile phones. Unfortunately, the men in the truck soon realized they were being followed and they tried to lose Chris. But Chris was determined not to lose them. They drive and drive and drive, changing roads, adding to Chris's fear because he told the family to tell the police they were on this road, the I-10, but now they were on a totally different road. They drive and drive until they get to the end of the road, at which point the truck turns around, faces Chris's car, turns the lights off, and just sits there. Sounds like, I mean, this would freak me out anyway. Chris stops the car, and the other brother, Nick, who was also in the car, runs to a nearby bar to call the police. Again, chasing criminals, so much harder without mobile phones. Then the truck lights start flickering and the truck slowly starts approaching Chris's car. They then speed past the car with Chris grappling back in to chase the truck. Luckily, they spot police cars, they're chasing the truck, and they manage to get the police involved in the chase. And finally, the police catch the truck, arrest the two men, 21-year-old Michael Phillips and 24-year-old Charles Gervais, for possession of a vehicle of a missing person. Like, I don't know if they've made a movie about this, but they really fucking need to, right? Like, already I'm hooked. I don't know whether the police encouraged this using dirty tactics, but Charles Gervais thought that Michael Phillips was blaming him for the disappearance, so somehow confesses to the murder. So they basically turn on each other, right? Apparently, it's so disgusting, they wanted to see if they had what it takes to kill someone. And Thelma, well, she was Michael Phillips' girlfriend.
Oh, God.
She was used as a honey trap. And then, because they're pragmatic assholes, they were also having car trouble. So they asked her to find someone with a decent car so they could use the car afterwards, which is like stupid as well as evil. Because, like, they got caught because they were driving his car. They might have got away with it otherwise. They took turns bludgeoning Andre over the head with a hammer. He wasn't dead, so they strangled him with a wire hammer and a cord from a light. And Andre was just basically in the wrong place in the wrong time. Gervais provided police with information to locate Andre's remains. Andre's body was recovered near a strip of sandy beach. It was located in the Manchac Swamp, just off Highway Exit 7, just like Rosemarie's visions.
Freaky, huh?
Yeah. Rosemarie actually took the stand during the trial for Andre's murder, and this was the first time a psychic was asked to give testimony on a case that they worked on. By the way, both men pled guilty and received life in prison without the possibility of a parole. Good. Thelma was convicted of second-degree murder and given life in prison without the possibility of parole. Great. But it's just like, it's such a depressing story.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, if you want, I'm not saying you should kill anyone, you shouldn't murder anyone, try to avoid it, but like, if you were gonna test to see whether you had it, like, wouldn't you pick an asshole?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you pick a pedophile? Wouldn't you do like a Dexter and pick like...
It's sad. It's a sad story. It is a sad story. I mean, it's a really interesting one because the psychic element there, I mean, that level of detail, you can't argue.
Like, how? She didn't know about the case. She didn't, she wasn't anywhere near the case. She, like, it's baffling, right? All right, so next case, serial killer James Koedatich. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he's an asshole, so I don't really care. James Koedatich was an American serial killer active between 1971 and 1982. So again, also, just want to point out, long before social media, you know, a lot of psychics can learn, you know, fuck tons from their clients or their targets on social media. The amount that people share, right, is it's amazing. So 1971 was this guy James's, the start of his career, if you call it that, as a serial killer. He was living in Dade County, Florida, and on the 13th of June, 1971, he killed his 40-year-old roommate, Robert Anderson. He was convicted of second-degree murder and received a 15-year sentence. While in prison, he was accused of killing an inmate, but this was ruled as self-defense and he was not charged. I mean, who knows if that's true or not? Prison is a dangerous place to be. It could very well have been self-defense. But anyways, whether it was or not, it was a killing, and it possibly desensitized him a little bit further to killing, right? I can't remember the quote, but it's something like killing one person is harder than having killed 10 people because they kind of blur in. You get more desensitized. You don't remember that one victim specifically. I don't know if that's true or not. In 1982, after 11 years in prison, Koedatich is granted parole and is released from prison. I mean, I don't get this. He was given 15 years and he killed someone in prison, albeit in self-defense. So I don't understand the concept of good behavior in prison. Like, where else do you get rewarded for not breaking the rules like this? So anyways, another story. So this fucker moves to New Jersey, and in November 1982, he sees 18-year-old Amy. So again, this is the year he got out of prison. So as soon as he's out of prison, he sees 18-year-old Amy Hoffman leaving her part-time job at the mall. He kidnaps her, he takes her to a secluded area and sexually assaults her before stabbing her to death. He then disposes of her body in the Mendham Reservoir nearby. Her body was moved by the water into a water tank and was found 2 days later. During the autopsy, Koedatich's semen was found in her body. But this is 82, so DNA testing was not anywhere near the way it was. I don't think there was any kind of database. On 5th of December, like 2 weeks later, he abducted another woman, 25-year-old Deirdre O'Brien. He raped her and stabbed her too. Heartbreakingly, she was found alive but died later in the hospital. The story of his capture is so freaking weird. So January 1983, the following month, Koedatich goes to police claiming he was stabbed by a male while driving alone. Police realize his car matches the description of the one used in the abduction of Amy Hoffman. The police then realize the wounds are self-inflicted.
Okay.
He's soon arrested and charged with the murder of Amy Hoffman and then Deirdre O'Brien. He was sentenced to death, and then in 1990, this was overturned to life imprisonment. His parole date is set for 2038, when he will be 90 years old, which for me is still...
He's still alive. He's still alive?
I actually don't know if he's still alive. But if he makes it to 90, that's when his parole date will be. Which I don't understand how you get sentenced to death and then it's converted to life imprisonment instead, but you can get out. Like
I don't understand the U.S. justice system.
No, and I'm happy to say that I'm not a fan of the death penalty. No. I don't believe in it.
No.
But I'm fully on board with life imprisonment.
Completely.
So I don't understand how it can be converted from literally losing your life to life imprisonment with the chance of getting out.
Yeah, I don't understand how their whole justice system works and why people are in prison for sending their kids to school in a different district, you know.
Yeah, and like smoking like weed that. And then you rape someone and you get 6 months.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, this again, totally different episode, but
let's get Kim Kardashian on the phone. She knows. She's a lawyer
privatization of services that should not be for profit is the long and the short of it. But anyways, so you might be asking, where the hell does the psychic come in, right?
Yeah.
You forgot what the topic was, huh?
I'm just fucking so disgusted. Do you know what I always think about with these sick fucks? What the hell happened to them growing up? Because, you know, when you always do some research on their background, not that I'm justifying their crimes, but they always came from some
households of neglect and abuse and all sorts. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. And definitely more resources need to be plowed into that so that we have more adjusted adult society rather than serial killers.
Yeah.
Anyways, let me tell you about the psychic, right?
Okay.
After the abduction of Amy Hoffman, that poor little 18-year-old girl, you know, who left her part-time job at the mall, like, is there anything else more wholesome than that? The police approached the local psychic. So sometimes the police themselves will resort to going to a psychic, right? Nancy Weber. They had worked with her in the past, and she had visions of Hoffman's body. She apparently told them the man who did this, his first name is James, his last name is Polish, multiple syllables beginning with a K and ending in an ish sound. He came up from Florida where he had been imprisoned for murder, and he lived in the area. And
this is all the details she gave.
It's all the details she gave.
Pretty specific.
And they were all very specific and 100% accurate, which obviously they only realized after they caught the guy, but and I don't know how much they could, you know, in the first case I told you about, the psychic helped them find the culprits. In this one, it helped like confirm, but I don't know how much a psychic's predictions can be actually used to confirm suspicions or, you know, as evidence. But it's creepy either way. This is not the only case that Nancy Weber's name popped up in. So like I said, the police had called upon her before and used her. So who is she? She is quoted saying, "I knew when family members died at the moment of their death." Ugh. She was a nurse with a specialization.
Oh, wait, did she see it coming?
I don't know. But because there's different psychics, which we've talked about.
Yeah. Because imagine how horrible it would be.
I mean, already this. I mean, she had visions of Hoffman's body.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to traumatize.
Because you know what? Imagine how awful it'd be for a psychic to know something bad's coming, which some do. Anyway, yeah.
She was a nurse with a specialization in psychiatrics. Eventually, she left nursing for a career as a psychic. So the next time she pops up in my research is during the case of Elizabeth Cornish, also in New Jersey. Remember, she was based in New Jersey. On the 8th of August, 1987, Elizabeth Cornish, age 42, was beaten to death with a claw hammer in her own bed. There was an upstairs neighbor, John Reese, who was in the frame for like a minute, but then also so was her boyfriend. Cornish's sister wanted the police to involve a psychic, and so they called Nancy because they'd worked with her before on this case and previous ones. On the you know, the one I just talked about and the previous ones. Detective Heater brought Nancy to the crime scene. She hadn't been told anything about the two main subjects, the guy that lived upstairs and the boyfriend. She felt evil upstairs as soon as she entered the flat. She described a scar on the face and the initials JR. Remember, the guy's name was John Reese. Heater told her that JR had passed the polygraph test, and she said, "Go back and talk to him again." When Heater did, he noticed a scar on his face, and Reese eventually confessed. So we all know that polygraph tests are unreliable and don't think they're used in court as evidence. They're used as kind of a guide, which I suppose is what psychics are used as, but this guy eventually confessed to killing. And, you know, if it hadn't been Nancy, if it hadn't been for her, he would have passed his polygraph and would have been just cleared as a suspect, and the case would have been unsolved, or someone else would have been convicted.
So it was the guy upstairs.
Yeah. All right, next case. The next case is the case of Ashley Howley. Ashley Howley was a 20-year-old who was last seen alive on the 16th of June, 2004. Earlier that day, she had called police to report that her boyfriend, Robert McMichael, had assaulted her. Bear with. She then made plans to go see her friends, but she never turned up. It was a whole month later that her mom filed a missing persons report.
What? Why a month?
Well, okay, I'm not sure, but I know that some places make you wait a month. They make you wait 30 days to file. I mean, 24 hours feels bad enough when you just know.
Do you know what? Do you know what always frightened me about this 24-hour thing is that the first 24 hours are the most crucial.
Exactly. This is why I have in my drawer under my desk and on my laptop a If I Go Missing file, so that you and Paul and whoever parents have access to my social media and my phone records and my banking, because that will give hopefully some clues. Yeah, and that kind of stuff. Again, if you have to wait for the police to take any kind of report seriously, and then if they want to, you know, get a warrant to have access to that information, it could, all of that takes time at the time that it's most crucial. So I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't have information about the relationship with the mom. You know, some parents might take a month to realize their kids, you know, their adult children are missing, or whether it's one of those places where you have to wait 30 days to report, which just, right? That's just horrible. But it was roughly at that time that Ashley's car was found abandoned. Everyone suspected the boyfriend, because remember she called earlier that day to report him for assault on her, but evidence could not be found to support this belief. A year later, psychic Kirsty Robinette is visited by a spirit. She could tell this woman had been murdered and that she was blonde. Robinette had worked on cases with the police before. She searched for blonde missing women and came across Ashley and just knew that this spirit that had visited her was Ashley. She wanted her killer, who was her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend at the time, to serve time, and she was a little bit revengeful. Fucking, I would be too. I would be like, fucking ruin his life. He murdered me. Robinette and Ashley's family traveled to a location where Ashley was saying that she was buried. So the spirit of Ashley was giving away her location of her body. Unfortunately, it was private land, so they couldn't explore or dig. Then in 2008, 4 years after Ashley went missing, her boyfriend, Robert McMichael, is charged with the murders of his own mother and her boyfriend. He was offered a deal, no death penalty, if he reveals where Ashley's body was. He directed police to the exact spot where Robinette had predicted. I know.
God, why couldn't they, even if it's private land, why the fuck does that matter when murder is involved? Do you know what I mean?
Because I'm guessing they have to either ask for permission, or
ask.
Yeah, I don't know whether they did or not, or get a warrant to dig on private land. And I'm guessing that the word of a psychic is not enough reason to grant a warrant to dig on private land. So, but it's heartbreaking because not only would they have found out what happened to Ashley earlier, but they could have
spared further deaths.
It would have prevented those 2 extra murders, and who knows how many other murders. We don't know if there's any others that he was responsible for in the meantime. So it's just horrifying. So that one's creepy. Like, how?
It is, yeah. I'm scared now.
I mean, this woman didn't even know who the spirit was that was contacting her. She had to go look through, I'm guessing, missing persons reports or something to identify who was even talking to her. Okay, so the next case, I'm really sorry if I'm mispronouncing this name. Melanie Uribe, I want to say. So do you ever wonder with books and shows like Miss Marple and Murder, She Wrote, why they themselves are never suspected? Because, like, Miss Marple and Angela Lansbury...
Because they're cute old ladies.
I know. Jessica Fletcher. They're always around when there's a murder. So, like, at some point, I don't know if there's ever been an episode where they're like, hang on a minute.
But can you think of an actual, real, true crime murder where it was an old lady? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Wrote the cookbook.
Yeah, Dorothy...
But she wasn't actually old. Wasn't she, like, in her 40s pretending to be old?
She was pretending to be much older.
Okay, so she wasn't actually an old lady.
I mean, we know that, like...
But she became old.
She eventually became an old lady. Well, I sometimes wonder this about psychic detectives, because they reveal something that only the killer could know. So are they ever themselves suspected? Well, in the case of Melanie Uribe and psychic Etta Smith, the answer is yes. 31-year-old Melanie Uribe was a nurse in Burbank, California. She was a divorced single mom to an 8-year-old child. While she was on her way to work on the 15th of December, 1980, witnesses saw 2 men abduct her by forcing their way into her pickup truck while she was at a red light.
This is why we gotta lock our car doors.
Lock your car doors. More on that in the next episode, which we recorded before this episode. So again, this is one of my phobias, having my car hijacked or my purse stolen or worse, right? So when Melanie didn't show up to work, her boss got worried. She was really punctual. Her boss called her house, no answer. So the boss called the police. They found the truck the next morning, burnt out. And obviously, if you go missing and there's signs of foul play, they take it more seriously quicker. But sometimes you go missing and something bad has happened, but there are no signs of it for the police to see. But, you know, the family just no, she doesn't go a day without calling. The boss knows she's always comes to work. She would never not turn up to work without calling unless there was something really bad happening. So 2 days after Melanie disappeared, Etta Smith heard about it on the radio. The report was talking about how police were conducting house searches. Etta instantly got the message that Melanie was not in a house, but that she was in or near a canyon and curving road. She reported this to police. She was worried they weren't taking her seriously, so she decided to head over to the area with some of her family members. She found fresh tire tracks in the canyon. She followed what her vision had told her and found Melanie's body. So the psychic went off her own back because the police weren't taking her seriously, and found the body herself. Etta had no clues as to who had killed Melanie, though, so she herself became a suspect. She was formally charged with murder, which you can understand, right? Like, I could totally understand.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, yeah, I mean, she can't tell you who did it. Then
yeah, she's just like calling the police about the body and then finding the body herself.
To be honest, in a way, to keep you on the safe side, yeah, keep her.
But listen how serious it is, right? Because also she's charged with murder. The sad thing is the police are not looking for the real murderer because as far as they're concerned, they've got the murderer. And you would hope that they're doing some work on the body and that leads them to the murderer, but no. Luckily for her, they soon found the killer, but not through any kind of forensics or anything like that. The killer was overheard by a police informant bragging about the murder. So just by chance, they find the real murderer. The man was arrested and confessed, implicating 2 other men in the crime. I'm guessing he was charged and so forth, and Etta was released. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. A case where the psychic, because she knew about this stuff that only the murderer in theory could know.
Did they use her again in the police force?
I don't know. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because to be honest,
you've just proved how fucking awesome you are as a psychic.
Yeah, I mean, they owe her an apology, but also they should really see her as a valuable resource. If they can't solve crimes, she's proven her worth.
Right. And even if you don't understand it, if you're getting valuable information and that you later back up with police work or whatever, I mean,
because I see that it's problematic to rely only on a psychic.
But of course. And
if it corroborates, other information and evidence, then I mean, it opens a lot of doors.
And obviously that opens up the whole argument about confirmation bias and all these kind of things. But that's a whole other story. Let me move on to the next case. So this is the case of John List. John List was an accountant living in New Jersey. A lot of psychics in New Jersey.
Yeah, this is a third New Jersey story, huh?
Right. He was living with his whole family and his mother. On November 1971, John killed his whole family. He shot his wife, his mother, and his 2 kids.
I think I know the story. Okay.
So awful. He then made himself some lunch, drove to the bank to close his and his mother's accounts.
Yeah.
Went to the high school to watch his oldest son in a football match.
I do know that. You know what? I know the story, but I don't know the psychic element of it. I haven't heard that. He
drove his son home and shot him too.
Fucking hell.
Oh, family annihilated.
I remember like listening to this in another podcast and being like, how the fuck? He killed his whole family. Then he just went to go see his son playing a game.
And then brought him home and killed him too. It's just, there's something next level depressing and creepy about family annihilators, especially because it's normally young children involved. Like, what the hell? Whatever, again, not saying you should murder your spouse, but whatever issues you're having, it's just awful. So John wrote a letter and left it at the scene of the crime in his house to his pastor, the irony, saying there was too much evil in the world, so he killed his family to save their souls, which is quite common. Either there's like financial problems or criminal issues or whatever, and they kill the kids also to protect them so they're not left alone, so that whatever. But I mean, it's awful. He then cleaned the crime scene, removed his face from all the family photos, turned the radio on to a religious station, and then left. The murdered family members were not even discovered for a month because John List had sent letters to his kids' school saying they were going to visit the other grandmother for a few weeks. He also stopped the delivery of milk, mail, and newspapers so it wouldn't like collect on the doorstep and arouse suspicion.
Didn't he wrap up all the bodies and put them in like one of the rooms?
I don't know.
There's some gross detail about how he stored them and about turning off the heat in the house so that
well, it sounds like he thought it through. So neighbors got suspicious because all the lights were left on 24/7 and then the bulbs started slowly burning out and weren't replaced, which is like either incredibly nosy, incredibly observant, or maybe it's just very obvious if you're walking past the house every day. I don't know. So they contacted the police, who then obviously found the murdered bodies. This case at the time, 1987, I think I said, was received a lot of press attention, as you can imagine, but all the photos of John List had been destroyed. His car was found at JFK Airport, and it's unknown whether he took a flight from there or just dumped his car there because, you know, airport car parks, people are used to cars being there for a long period of time. So a car left there for a month wouldn't arouse suspicion, you know?
Yeah. Because he did think about, he was pretty meticulous about the details of this. So I can imagine that he would do something like
all
that.
All of this through, exactly. What they learned after his capture, which I'll go into, was that he traveled from New Jersey to Michigan, then to Colorado, and assumed the name Bob Clark. Of course, he joined the local church and met a woman called Dolores Miller in 1985. So sorry. Oh, it was 1971. And so by 1985, he's living here in Colorado, member of the church, met a woman called Dolores Miller. They've married a couple of years later. They moved to Virginia. So in 1989, nearly 20 years after the murder, America's Most Wanted aired an episode on this case and featured a bust of what he would have looked like then. Neighbor reported John List, who is now under the name of, what was it, Bob Clark? And he was arrested. He maintained his innocence and that he wasn't even John List until fingerprint records matched those of John List's military record. But this guy had been in the military.
Yeah, well, that's never surprising. Police force, military, anything, you know what, like positions of authority. I'm not really surprised sometimes.
Like clearly, I don't know. I mean, I hope it's better now, but we're talking obviously pre-71. There clearly wasn't adequate psychological testing for these positions of power. And, you know, because I mean, So, do you want to hear the reason he gave for killing his whole family?
Yes.
I mean, we already
Was it real? Was it real? Was it true?
He left this note saying he killed the kids and so forth to save the soul, but the reason was his wife's alcoholism, supposed syphilis she contracted from her first husband and then concealed from John, and money problems, which money problems is quite often featured in these horrible cases of family.
So sad. Do you know what? It's so sad that like they feel like they got to kill the whole fucking family because of financial problems. Like, there's obviously more to it, isn't it?
Definitely.
Like the guy is obviously sick, you know, on top of all that.
Exactly. In 1990, but I like how he was like, well, I'll just start a new life. Because he's a family annihilator, but quite often in these family annihilations, the annihilator will then kill themselves. But he was like, no, I'll just assume a new identity. So, and he was clearly a good planner. So at no point did he think like, why don't I just make new identities for all of us?
Do you think they're ever sad and miss their family?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, do they have?
Because I don't buy the story of financial issues. I think he just wanted to just eliminate the whole problem, huh?
Yeah. New life without any of these burdens, right?
Yeah, like, it's so sad. What was that All American story? What was that called on Netflix? Oh,
Chris Watson.
Yeah, what a sick fuck.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. They see their family as an inconvenience and they want to start again.
Yeah. All right. So by April 1990, John List was convicted of 5 counts of first-degree murder, meaning premeditated. I mean, he planned it a lot. He committed his brutal crime and then went on the run for 17 and a half years before being caught with the help of psychic, because you're probably wondering, where does the psychic come in? Elizabeth Lerner. Lerner saw a vision of List with a woman in Virginia, which is where List was eventually found and brought to justice. So I don't know how much she was involved in it, in actually finding him, or whether that was used as like confirmation. I don't know. But again, creepy of all the places to be like, he's living with a woman in Virginia. It's quite random, isn't it? Next case, Penny Sarah. Not much information about this one because it was before 1971, but Penny disappeared in Connecticut and was found stabbed to death in a garage stairwell. The lack of leads led the police to bring psychic Pascarella, which is a great name, Pascarella Downey, who said that the killer would not...
Oh, that's the first name.
Pascarella is the first name.
Oh, love
Good
it.
name, yeah. Who said the killer would not be found for a while, but they should look for a mechanic whose name starts with the letter E. 30 years later, police arrest and convict Edward Grant thanks to DNA evidence that could only at that point be tested. So All right. So at this point, I'm looking at all these different cases and stuff, and they start getting a bit samey. We get it. They give clues to help identify the murderer or find the body. Until I got to the case of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, which we are very familiar with.
Oh my God. Okay,
Yeah.
God.
So
Well, this is a story that we remember.
Because it happened, it played out in our living memory. It's in the UK. It wasn't that far from us. So it was, you know, very prominent in our minds. I knew you would know this, remember this. Because we watched it play out. We watched them disappear. We watched all of the footage of the searches.
And wait. This is the one.
I'm going to go into the details.
Okay. Oh,
okay.
God. Okay.
So it hits close to home because it literally was closer to home. It's not New Jersey. It was only a couple hours drive away from where we lived at the time. And we were old enough to watch it literally unfold in front of our very eyes. So I know you remember watching it. There was the girls went missing. There was the search for the girls, then the realization that they were dead, then the hunt for the killer. It was awful. Like every part of it was shocking. We were glued to our screens. It was, ugh. So those of you that are unfamiliar with the case or who need a bit of a reminder, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman were 10-year-old friends living in Soham, Cambridgeshire, which is, for those of you non-Brits or people who are bad with geography, it's not far north of London. At 11:45 a.m. on Sunday, the 4th of August, so daytime, it's always creepier when it's daytime, right? Jessica went to her friend Holly's house for a barbecue. They listened to music, they played video games, they changed into their Man United t-shirts. And this was another creepy fact, right? There's this famous photo that we all remember because at 5:04 p.m., Holly's mom took a picture of them both in their football tops. They ate, and then Holly and Jessica went back to Holly's room to continue playing. At 6:15, both girls left the house without telling anyone. They wanted to go to the local sports center to buy sweets from the vending machine. So this picture that we all remember from the news, which we'll share on socials and so forth, it was like taken a couple hours before their disappearance and ultimately their death. They were never seen alive again. Jessica's phone was switched off at 6:46 p.m. At 8 p.m., Holly's mom entered the bedroom and found both girls gone. They searched the house, the neighboring streets, and when their daughter's 8:30 curfew passed, they called Jessica's parents, who were also panicking. The girls were reported missing at 9:55 p.m.
What year was this again? 2000 and something, because of phones.
I said 2022, but that's not right. Just bear with me, I'm Googling.
I thought it was earlier than the 2000s, but I guess they had a phone, so.
Bear with me. Sorry, 2002. Which was the time when people were still were already having mobile phones. Very, I would say, unusual that a 10-year-old at that time would have a mobile phone of their own, but not unheard of. So sorry, when I said earlier 2022, I was wrong. 2002. So to put it in perspective, I was like 19, you were like 17. Yeah, so they reported missing at 9:55. There's a massive search for the girls. There was house-to-house inquiries, 400 officers, because they're children, obviously it's taken seriously quicker. 400 officers and loads of volunteers. We saw all of this on the news almost instantly. It was all over the news. Even the US Air Force from local bases got involved in the search, and that picture was released because it was literally a picture from that day, which how often do you have that? Probably more often now with, you know, camera phones or whatever, but at the time that was still unusual. The parents were adamant that both girls were clued up on stranger danger. So could it have been someone that they knew who abducted them? Had they gotten in an accident? There were appeals, there were reconstructions and vigils. People received more than 2,000 tips. Local pedophiles and sex offenders were questioned, and sightings were reported all over. But sadly, 2 weeks later, on 17th of August, a gamekeeper discovered the bodies in an irrigation ditch 10 miles east of Soham, which is where they were from. The girls had likely been asphyxiated and their bodies had been burned before burial. They had been exposed to the elements for about 13 days, so the state of decomposition was advanced. So we all know that 28-year-old Ian Huntley, with the help of Maxine Carr, were responsible for this heinous crime. What makes it extra terrifying is that they both worked in schools. Maxine was their teaching assistant, and Ian
this is the bit that makes me feel the most sick, because
and Ian was a caretaker at the local secondary school. You hope that it's a place where your children are safe from this kind of evil. And they weren't killed in school, but they both worked in schools, one of them in their school. They walked past Ian's house on their way from their sweet run. Ian lured them in, claiming that Maxine, their teaching assistant, was inside. She was, in fact, visiting her mum up north. Ian admitted to police he had seen the girls, claiming he was washing his dog in the front yard, and exchanged brief words. Ian was interviewed. This is the fucking, I've literally got chills now saying this, but Ian was interviewed numerous times by the press. So you can Google videos of him talking about the girls, talking about how lovely they were, talking about seeing them on the day. Knowing what we know now, watching these videos is just so incredibly disturbing. A couple of reports claim he was reluctantly giving these interviews, but to be honest, he looks like he's fucking loving it. He looks like taking shit. And
well, don't serial killers like that? They
we hear this a lot, don't we? Of them returning to the scene of the crime, getting involved in the investigation.
They love the aftermath, don't they?
Being volunteers in the search efforts and stuff like that. Maxine was also interviewed by the press, and there's still the sort of gray area of at what point Maxine knew about Ian's involvement. So in this interview, she pretended she was at home but did not see the girls as she was in the bathtub. Presumably, she lied about this to give Ian an alibi. So at this point, you know that why would you give a fake alibi to someone that you think is 100% innocent, who has already admitted he's seen the girls? So he's very open about, oh, I saw them walking down the street, I said hi, you know. In these interviews, Maxine refers to the girls in past tense, which was a big red flag, even though their bodies had yet been discovered. She shows a thank you card Holly had made for her. Ian's house was searched the day after the girls went missing, as were many of the houses on their potential route and in the village. Police claimed they were suspicious, but I'm sure they were really suspicious of a lot of people at the time. The next day, on the 6th of August, Ian went to Grimsby to pick Maxine up from her mother's house. When they arrive home, one neighbor claims to see them both looking in the boot of Huntley's car, and him looking shaken and her crying. So she wasn't involved in the murder, but it seems like very quickly after she knew that Ian was responsible, and she goes on to cover his tracks and try to give him an alibi and so forth. Over the weeks, Ian was losing weight and acting more erratic. He was liaising often with the police as he'd become some kind of spokesperson for the community. It makes me sick even saying that. Working for a school and having seen the girls so soon before they disappeared, and probably also because he was in a relationship with Maxine, who knew the kids well because she was their teaching assistant. He started asking the police questions like how long DNA survives before deteriorating. They then noticed scratches on his face just days before the girls were discovered. I don't know why they didn't think to, like, you know, I don't know, just in hindsight's 2020, I'm not going to judge the police, but apparently there were also scratches on him the day after they disappeared when they searched his home. Maxine and Ian were officially questioned by the police for the first time on the 17th of August, which is still the day before they found the bodies. They had been tipped off that Ian had been accused of rape several years earlier, and local residents around Maxine's mum's house could verify that Maxine had been visiting her mum the day of the disappearance, not at home, giving, you know, Ian an alibi. Police searched their house again, but it had been deep cleaned. Super suspicious, right? For a couple in their 20s to deep clean a house, I don't know. They also searched the school where Ian worked and found clothing the girls had been wearing when they were last seen, including their charred and cut up Manchester United shirts. His fingerprints were found on that bin, and fibers from his body were matched to the clothing. They searched his car and found that it had also been cleaned, but found the same mix of brick dust, chalk, and concrete found on the road leading to where the girls' bodies were inevitably found. So Ian and Maxine were arrested at 4:30 a.m. on the 17th of August. Maxine confessed immediately to lying about her whereabouts on the day. She believed in Ian's innocence and wanted to ensure he wasn't falsely accused of killing the girls.
I don't buy it. I don't know.
I mean, if you believe the neighbors' testimony about him showing her the boot of the car and her crying, she clearly found out about it fairly quickly, that he was guilty. And, you know, Ian's trial was delayed because they wanted to assess whether he was able to stand trial, I presume mentally, health-wise. Ian was suffering from mental health issues, probably because we know what happens to child killers in jail. In October 2002, he was deemed competent mentally to stand trial. Maxine would write to him and tell him that she loved him and she knew he was innocent, blah, blah, blah. And
why wasn't she in trouble?
She was in trouble. She was arrested as well. Then in December 2002, see how fast...
But she didn't go to jail? I can't remember. Did she go?
She did go to jail.
Okay, good.
She was writing from her jail to his jail. Okay. So December 2002, she cut all contact with Ian, and all of this was public in the press and so forth. So this whole case happened so fast in front of our very eyes. They disappeared in August. You know, this is happening. They're deeming him competent to stand trial in October. December, she's cutting contact with him. In June 2003, Ian attempted and failed to commit suicide. Just days before his preliminary hearing on the 16th of June, he pleaded not guilty. The trial was ongoing into December of that year. He changed his plea, saying the murder was unintentional. The murders were unintentional. I mean, the story, do you remember the story he came up with?
No.
Oh, God, it's just like, seriously, this is a scene from like a Faulty Towers or something. So he claims that somehow the girls are in his bathroom, which is like already suspicious enough. There's no reason for two 10-year-olds to be in a, you know, in a grown man's bathroom without, like, there needs to be a good reason, right?
Yeah.
Holly had a nosebleed. The bath was already filled with water as he'd been cleaning the dog that afternoon. In the bathroom, he slipped, accidentally knocked Wells into the bath while helping her stanch her nosebleed, and this unintentional act caused her to drown, as he himself just simply panicked and froze. He further claimed that Jessica had witnessed this accident and began screaming, "You pushed her, you pushed her," and that he then accidentally suffocated her while attempting to stifle her screams.
Was this him who came up with the story or his solicitors?
I mean, I don't know whether it was a combination of the two or what.
Because it's a pretty fucking unbelievable. I mean, if you were gonna construct a story, that one is pretty bad.
It's stupid. Can you talk?
Hello.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I just charged up my headphones. Want to put them back on. Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? So he basically said one of them had a nosebleed and he tripped and fell, knocked her in the bathtub. The other one starts screaming, so he tries to stop her from screaming, accidentally kills her, while the other one accidentally drowns in the bathtub. Bullshit, right? It did remind me, and I'm going to find this video because I have a video of our dad telling this story about his underpants catching fire. Have you heard it?
Yeah.
Where his underpants are on the washer, on the dryer.
Yeah, drying. The hanging line thing.
Yeah. A breeze blows into the window, knocks the dryer over, which lands on, it was like in a utility room that had a mini kitchen and where they also had laundry, knocks, the underpants fall on top of the stove while the dryer turns on the stove. And so his underpants catch on fire, and luckily he caught it in time before their whole fucking home went up in flames. Yeah. But I mean, this. So you know, crazy things can happen, but these are two healthy 10-year-olds, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so apparently, Maxine's reasons for helping Ian is that she had always been obsessive about tidiness. She says, "If for a minute I had known or believed he'd murdered either of these girls, I would have been horrified." But then, as we know, a couple months later, she cuts off contact with him. I don't know whether she realizes that she's been like, whether she never believed that, whether she realized it'd be better for her case to cut contact.
I mean, look, you know, I'm no legal specialist, or detective, but it does sound like the moment he was showing her the boot and she was crying, that was the moment she found out, right?
Yeah, that's what I would say. Again,
which gives me a little bit more, I mean, you know, she should never have gone along with it, but it gives me a little bit more, or less disgust with humanity, the fact that, like, she wasn't also involved in...
Oh, no, she definitely wasn't involved in the murder. She was definitely at her mom's. She was not there when the murders happened. It's just at what point did she realize that Ian was responsible for their deaths? And at what point did she realize? Because remember, originally she said she didn't want to be falsely accused. Then she's saying, oh, no, it was an accident, so I wanted to help him because I knew he'd be done for murder when it was just a crazy accident. So at what point did she realize, no, he's just a fucking dick, like, of the worst kind? So Maxine was given 42 months for perverting the course of justice, for trying to cover up, you know, and provide alibis and clean and so forth. Ian was convicted on 2 counts of murder and given life imprisonment with a minimum term of 40 years. So again, where do the psychics come in? Well, the families had been approached by hundreds of them. Again, when something this high profile happens, you get a lot of people coming out of the woodwork with their stories and so forth. Hollywell's parents were recommended to contact one by a friend, and he told them immediately that their daughter was dead. This was before the bodies were found. He told them a man and a woman were involved and gave descriptions seemingly matching Ian and Maxine. He described a car similar to Ian's Ford Fiesta used to dump the bodies, and he told the parents the color, the make, and the model, as well as the first letter of the registration plate. He told them there was a stream outside the bedroom window. This was the view from Ian and Maxine's house. Sorry if I've not given the name of the psychic. Psychic Holly Wells. Dennis McKenzie. So he gave quite specific, a lot of different specifics. Because, you know, if you have like 1,000 psychics calling up, each giving a, oh, it's a man. Oh, it's someone living in New Jersey. Oh, it's someone with red hair. Some of them are going to be correct, you know? But I think if someone calls up and gives this many specific details...
Oh, yeah, this guy is good, huh?
Like, how do you explain that? He seems to have done well off this case, because you can buy his book, Being the Soam Psychic, on Amazon. So I went to the darkest part of the web to do a bit of research. Yep, you get it. You guessed it. I went to Mumsnet.
Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. All the NCT mums, yeah.
Someone had just read his book and was asking if anyone had a reading with him. Some people loved him and said his predictions were spot on, and others said it was a total waste of time. So again, is it just a coincidence? Did he see Ian Huntley on the news and got a bad vibe off of him and you know, to think worst case, researched him and where his house was and did it that way? Or is he a genuine psychic? I don't know, but it's creepy either way.
Thing is, with psychic readings, as we know, sometimes you get really specific stuff. Sometimes you get stuff that doesn't make sense to you.
And then some of the stuff, it's like, yeah, I mean, that could apply to a lot of people. So who knows? But I mean, the color, make, and model of his car, I don't think that's the kind of thing that would be readily available, even if you were trying to like frame or point a finger at Ian Huntley. I can't imagine that's something that you'd have access to.
God, it's creepy, isn't it? I mean, the story is so sad. It's so sad, and it's just one of those things that, you know, you just, what makes it 10 times worse is you send your kids to school thinking they're safe, you know, that they're working with safe people, and that people
in that capacity. And he was like, wasn't he was a maintenance man or something, but that anyone working in an environment with children, especially a school, would be safe. You know, would be checked. And again, it's difficult. I know it's difficult if they don't have a record.
Well, this is the thing, you know, when you're teaching, when you work in a school, everyone has to be DBS checked. It was called CRB checked. Now it's DBS checked. But that only checks your history. You know, there's no psychological testing.
Records. It doesn't go and ask your ex-partners, you know what I mean?
There's no psychological testing. And I can tell you that I worked with some questionable people. I mean, I know at least 2 teachers that had affairs with students, you know? That's, you know, doesn't even take into account the sort of cruelty. And I know, a lot of teachers can be like that, but
I just want to say that those cases were taken over by the police, so don't at us.
God. Okay, you want to get rid of that?
People being like taking you to the police station to interrogate you. No, the police already know about those cases.
Yeah.
She's not fucking covering for pedophiles.
No. Those cases have been dealt with. They have been dealt with.
I mean, it's sadly.
It's not uncommon. Let's just say that. You know what? Those are just 2 teachers I worked with. The amount of times I heard stories of 1st and 2nd degree connections of suspicious activity with students, that's a sad fucking truth.
We think back to our childhood and the questionable things that some of our teachers said.
And the sad truth is that I don't mean to scare parents, but there are, some sick people that are attracted to a career working with kids. I don't know. Because they're. Anyways,
I'm gonna wrap up there because.
Yeah, don't cut that out because honestly, I've depressed myself.
We're gonna go down so those are some cases where I didn't go into all of the psychics that call up with things that are inaccurate, but those are some cases where some psychics clearly helped or came up with stuff that you just think, how the fuck?
Yeah.
You know all of that. Just cannot. I can't think of any other explanation.
I wonder how many more cases would have been solved a lot faster if they would have been open to psychic help.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you so
much for
joining us.
You know what? This episode fucking depressed me. Can you tell me like a story? Can we talk about Disney?
Because I got an appointment. But thank you so much for joining us.
Have me back. Leave us a review.
Leave us a review, please. 85% of you are listening on Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or whatever it's called these days. So leave me a review there, please.
And sign up to Patreon for any amount so you can watch this video of us.
Thank you. See you next week.
Bye.
Hey there! Thanks for being a loyal listener.
Do you need a new website or want to boost your social media performance? Or do you hate podcast editing? You've tried optimizing your website and social media channels, but you're still not getting the listeners, downloads, and engagement you want?
We, the Sake Sisters, love helping people with tasks that they hate. We know a thing or two about podcasts, websites, and social media, and we love working with other podcasters and business owners.
So why not head over to Switchblade Sisters Social Club.com and go to our Work With Us section. We believe in collaboration over competition. A rising tide raises all ships.
Bye!